Question 4.4. How do the children in frame 6 contradict the stereotype of children living in an orphanage? So there are some words that we firstly need to get the meaning of quickly before we attempt to or try to answer the question. So when we talk about contradiction, Janet, how would you explain this?
Remember what
word?
we did? Remember what we said earlier? We said you do a word attack skill. My students, when I say, let's do a word attack skill, go, I love it. So you divide it into its pieces. So we have contra and we have dict or diction. And contra, we said, meant opposite, against. And dico, dicere, is the Latin word for speak or say. So if you contradict, you say something that's the opposite or against what somebody else has said. Sometimes you even contradict yourself. You know, you say something like, oh, I'm going to work until midnight tonight, and then you say, oh, 9 o'clock, time for bed. You've contradicted yourself. Okay. And then the second one is the stereotype.
So basically, when we talk about a stereotype, we talk about the belief about a certain group of people, what we think a certain type of people or a certain thing does. So it's basically the beliefs we have attached to someone.
And a stereotype is a typical example of that. So let's say you believe that I don't know, girls who are academic always have glasses, they do well at maths and they're really boring. And you say, well, have a look at her. Look at her. She's boring, she's got glasses, she does well at maths. She's a stereotype. And so, you know, cartoons use this. If I showed you a person in a white coat, you know, with that stethoscope around their necks and they're going to listen to your heartbeat, that's a stereotype of a
doctor.
Absolutely. All right. Teachers have their hair drawn back in buns.
Exactly.
You know, and they're usually old and they have glasses on the edge of their nose and they say, well, children. And they have horrible names like, I don't know, like hit or smack. Okay. That's the stereotype of the teacher. So it's a typical example that fits what Thandeka said. Our idea of what that kind of person should look like or should be like. So now we have to do stereotype of children living in an orphanage. So look, this depends. Thandeka's talked a lot about prior knowledge. The only one that I think somebody might know is Oliver Twist. Or is that, please, sir? Yes. Oh, she actually knows it. It's so exciting. Can I have some more? So children in orphanages are badly treated. They're like wimpish because they're thin, because they don't eat enough. And yeah,
like they're sad.
They're very sad because nobody loves them and they're not looked after by anybody. That's how we think of children in an orphanage. They're dressed in rags, they're exploited, they're made to do all the work. That's the stereotype. Okay. So that's the prior knowledge. What worries me is I'm getting it from my reading of a novel, and you've either read the novel or we've all watched movies. But if you don't have that and you don't read widely, you're not going to have the stereotype. It's a bit worrying. But yeah, good. With that in our minds.
So because we know that the stereotype for an orphanage is the image that Janet has portrayed for us, very sort of, you don't expect as much excitement and throwing things around, but you think that they're very well behaved or that
terrified,
they're just quiet and scared the whole time, and they're ready to get some instructions from whoever's taking care of them. So that is basically, so now we are looking at that is what the stereotype is. But the question, if we go back to it, says, how do they contradict? How do these particular orphans in the cartoon go against the stereotype that we've just described to you? Well, if you look at the frame in itself, then we can see there's definitely no sign of sorrow or helplessness.
Look at
or
that joyful child on the right.
Exactly. I feel like this would be the first one that you look at, okay? So
Hands
we
off.
see them that they're very happy, they're very playful, they're quite comfortable in this home that is not theirs, and they probably clearly are here for the first time, but they're playing around, lots of energy, lots of joy, and so that is how it's being contradicted, because it is the opposite of what the stereotype states about orphans. Okay, so that's how you would answer that. So firstly, understand the words, check what the words mean before you answer the question, because you might just be going about it the wrong way around.